This is Beyond with Heather Tesch, where we examine near-death experiences and life itself, hopefully making this life a little better. Hello, everyone. I am so glad you are joining us today, and I'm so glad that our guest is Rebecca Kastl. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, how are you?
Great. It was so nice to meet you at the IANS conference. You just have such a great presence about you. And I'm so happy to share that with our audience today. So we are going to talk about your spiritually transformative experience.
Yes.
And yours is very different than most because it unfolded over 2 years. So
Yes.
why don't you just start at what led up to that and then get into it?
Okay, perfect. I will. Yeah, I love meeting you at IANS as well, and you just also are very beautiful. I was excited to get to connect with you. So I'll go start at the beginning. Yes, I had a spiritually transformative experience that was similar, I say, to like a near-death experience over real time, over 2 years. I was raised in a really skeptical family, so I didn't believe in anything that happened to me. My dad was an MD, PhD, and my mom was a psychologist. So it was just, not only did I not believe in it, but like my dad made fun of people in the news. He loved to just say that people were crazy if they had anything like that. So I just grew up with very removed from any kind of miracle experience, which I'm thankful for because it helped me, really question what happened to me. But at age 13, I had a trauma that was really painful and horrible, and I didn't really deal with it. I just thought I could fix it by just being perfect on the outside, like a lot of folks do. I just studied hard and I just tried to fit in as best I could and hoped it would go away if I forgot about it. It didn't go away. I had to deal with it eventually. I ended up going to therapy for some of high school, but especially college. And after a few years of therapy, some very intensive therapy as well, my therapist told me I was fine. So I didn't really need anything. I was totally good because I was functioning and fitting in and functional. But I knew like in my heart there was still something wrong. And I was 23 when I really decided I really want to get to the bottom of what's going on. Like I just knew that my heart had something on top of it, is how it felt. So I really just said, I want to heal. And that's when I met a Reiki teacher who started teaching me Reiki. I didn't believe in that. And I also met a yoga teacher who I started studying yoga with that helped me really get balanced physically and energetically. So I started doing that. And then at age 25, I moved to New York for graduate school. And that's where I had my spiritually transformative experience. I was, in my first January there, I was, a great student. I was studying hard and I'd gotten very really kind of happier because I'd studied all these things and was doing well. Hurricane Katrina happened that fall. That was hard, but I got, was close with my friends and family and we were mostly okay. In January of 2006, had like a little flu or an illness. And while I was sick, I was reading The Tunnel and the Light by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. And I think that both of those things together really got into my skin in a way that nothing had before. And as I was getting better, I wrote in my journal. I was writing in my journal. I started crying. I felt all these tingles come over me. And I just wrote that I wanted to devote my life to God. And it was not like I planned to do that. It wasn't like I hadn't thought I'd done that before. I'd been Jewish and Christian and done these things, but something different happened that night. And I wrote, "Dear God, I have decided to give my life to you and whatever that entails. I want to be guided by you, by the light. I will work hard to follow this path and bring it to fruition. Please help me do this. Please help me bring light to other people. Thank you. Amen." Okay, so that's when my experience started. I didn't mean to write that, but when I went to bed that night, I saw a light come over my bed. I was laying in bed and I just saw it come from one end of the room to right over me. And it was like the light could see me. It could see into my heart and my soul. And it like really loved me and cared about me. But it was really scary to see that. Even though I'd studied Reiki, I didn't believe like you could see lights like that. And it felt so real and so sentient and powerful. And I just told it to go away. I was like, go away. I'm scared. Go away, which was not nice. I just wasn't very spiritual. And as I told it to go away, I started feeling tingles in my head, like coming down through my head. And I thought it was a headache. I remember looking at my boyfriend who was asleep next to me, like, what's this headache? Like, is he having this too? Like, what's happening? And then as I let go into it, it said, you don't have to be afraid, but if you are, you can wear a hat. And it put a graduation hat into my mind's eye. And I did try to change the hat because didn't know what was happening to me. And I just was like, well, I don't like that hat. I was the worst spiritual person. I feel so bad. Like, why did God even take all this time to help me when every time I was like, oh. Anyway, and then once I tried to change the hat, it stopped. But experience didn't stop. Everything for the next 2 years really started happening after that night. So I'll just go through some of the main things that happened to me. I saw light outside of everyone, coming out of everyone. So the next morning I woke up, I was like, that was weird. I don't know what that was about. But as I was going to class, I just saw everybody just like pouring, like they had a light bulb inside of them and everyone was just glowing with like so much light. I was like, how did I never notice that everyone is so beautiful? And I was just staring at everyone like, oh my gosh, everyone's so beautiful. I started having psychic dreams. Like those happened pretty soon after I saw that light. So I started having dreams that were like guidance about things I needed to do in my life. I started having dreams about what was going to happen to me. And those weren't scary. They were just interesting. And it was like a different way to relate to dreams than I'd ever related to them because I'd been raised like my mom was a psychologist. Every dream you have is about you. But when I started having dreams of things that were going to happen later, it was like, okay, this is a different way to dream. And they have been helpful for me in my life. So I use my dreams as a lot of guidance as well. I also saw how everyone's connected. So I started to feel really viscerally if somebody was, if I said something hurtful. That was like the first time I noticed, like, I hurt my sister by accident. I wasn't paying attention and I was like a little careless. And I felt like then like how much it really hurt her. And I felt it in my heart. And it was like, I just had never knew that I could hurt people like that. And I felt awful. And that was when I was like, I need to not do that anymore. And I also could feel like what happens when I'm kind to someone, how much it makes a difference. But it was not just like a knowledge, it was like a feeling. It was like a life review kind of thing a little bit. Like I felt it so strongly, whatever I did and how much it affected people around me. I also started feeling surrounded by angels. So for those 2 years especially, I felt really surrounded by angels. I had some experiences that I've talked about, like where I was going to sign up for a grad study abroad program, and I felt two angels on either shoulder, like going really tall up to heaven, telling me not to do that. They didn't say it with words, but they just were like, you shouldn't do that. So I didn't do it. I listened. It's taken me a while to be really good at listening to that guidance, but that time I really knew because it was so strong. And I also have felt angels since, and I've seen angels and just felt their guidance. So that was really neat. I also wasn't raised to believe in that. Another thing that happened during that time is I saw a future timeline of my life. So, and this has also continued a little bit to this day, but during those 2 years, I was going to write a book, and I started to open my computer to write about something not related to my spiritually transformative experience. And I saw my whole life flash before my eyes, like what would happen if I wrote that book, published it, the bad reviews I would get, how depressed I would be. And I just thought, you know what, I'm not going to do that. And I just closed my computer, listened to that guidance. So since then, like, it's been a little bit hard for me to make choices, because when I do make one, I can feel the timeline a little bit of what choice I'm making and how it shifts my life. But if I'm tuning into love, I can, trust that I'm going on the right timeline for me if I'm in tune with my heart. Another thing that happened is I got rid of my nightmares. So after my trauma, I'd had like really bad nightmares of demons. Also wasn't raised to believe in that, but they would just like, since I was 13, I would have these nightmares where they would circle me and I would be paralyzed and I wouldn't be able to get rid of them. And I would be so afraid. And after that, after the light, the last nightmare I had, I was like sitting up out of my bed. I was 26 at the time, and I just saw it circling me. It was trying to poke my heart and trying to like attack me. And then I just knew that it couldn't hurt me anymore. I wasn't afraid for the first time in my life because I'd had this beautiful light experience. I just told it over and over, like, you can't hurt me. God lives in me and works through me. And I said that over and over again. And it stopped. It went away, and they never came back. And I literally had them on and off for 13 years. So like for that to stop was such a big moment in my life. And I was really just I felt so triumphant. They've never come back, and it's been a while now. So, and then the last thing, which is kind of my favorite part now, I didn't think about it much till I talked at IANS, but it's when I had this dream that like ended my whole experience. So I had those 2 years. I talk about, I made this promise, my life was here. And these 2 years, I was like brought up to the level that I needed to go to, and like then left. So the end of the 2 years, I dreamt I was in my room and I was like talking to this person, and I was kind of complaining because I was saying life is hard. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what I'm doing. But he was looking at me. He was like, life is amazing. This is so beautiful to be alive. You need to go have a great life, go have adventures. And he looked at me with like so much love. And as I looked at him, I realized I loved him. Like I was in love with him. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's your name? He said, Jonathan. And I really thought he was a real person for the longest time. Like, but he was an angel because he was like glowing so much. Like, who glows that much? And I said, when am I going to meet you? And he said, when you're done swimming. And the swimming is like a metaphor I now know, like for living my life in a spiritual way. So the dream, when he said, you can meet me when you're finished swimming. And then the dream I was in a boat after that, and I was just lowered into the water, and I just had to start swimming out into like an open ocean by myself. And that's when I woke up the next morning and it was all over. So like I hadn't realized for those 2 years, like how surrounded I'd felt and how held and comforted and like just connected to God I felt until it was over. And it was like, it all just like the whole world got really still and quiet. And it was really hard for a while because I just thought I'd live with God forever after that. Like I just thought, okay, I'm going to learn all these things. I'm going to go like live in heaven forever. And it was like, no, you learn all these things and now you're like still on the earth to help people, I guess, with what I went through. So yeah, that's the main part of the story.
A very interesting story. And when did you go from kind of doubting this to realizing that this is all real that's happening?
Well, okay. There were two people that really helped me in my life that helped me know that it was real. So I had my stepdad, my mom remarried. So, I'd had a dad who was like a skeptical scientist, but my mom remarried in my early 20s. He was like a Homa Choctaw medicine man, or traiteur, they call in Louisiana. So he lived like a life that was really consistent with this. He saw visions, he had psychic dreams. He didn't talk about it a lot, but we talked about it some because he was having dreams about me the whole time that I was going through this. He had a dream I was becoming an angel of God on the earth, like during this time. And, it's like, I was also in grad school, like not being a 26 or 27-year-old. So it was kind of hard to hear stuff like that. But he really modeled for me that it was okay to have these experiences. And if you have them, like, dealing with them in a way that they're real, even if my dad wouldn't think so, my stepdad would. I also would go meet with a shaman who definitely helped me think that these were real. But at the same time, like it did, even though I had those two people in my life, I still took like years. Like I moved back home to Louisiana and I was like, that was real. That wasn't real. That was real. That wasn't real for like a long, long time. And finally, I guess I just over the last, I don't know, it just took time. And I was like, you know what, that was real. And it's helped to do readings for people because if I do readings and I'm telling them things that actually are true for them, then it helps me know that like that spiritual reality is real. So I don't know. It's hard to say because what's real anyway? It's like such a big question.
That's true. Now, I imagine that a lot of people dedicate their lives to God, but not many of them go through an experience like this. Why do you think that you did?
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that, but I've thought about it. I think it's because I had such like the trauma and the place I was in with my heart. It was like so sad and depressed and dark. And I guess it was just part of my journey because I had to do like a level of spiritual healing to really heal, like the demons, the nightmares, like all this stuff. I guess it was just part to go to that other side was part of it. And I think that when I made that promise, my heart was really, really open, and I really, really meant it. And I was crying, and I was like desperate to know God. Even though I say it was an accident, in my heart, I was like, I just want to be with God, and I want to help God, like people. And I just really meant it. And I think that I do think God answers prayers, and sometimes it'll be really visual, and maybe it won't be as like in, as in your life and in your face. But I do think that, when you knock, the door's open. So whatever it is.
One part was accepting it, but you also at some point decided to share your story. So how hard was that decision?
It was very hard because as much as I started to know it was real inside, I just didn't want I didn't want to be ostracized by my friends. And I know how, I'm involved in several different religions from my family being Jewish and Christian, and I didn't want to be ostracized by any of my religious friends or family. And I just like to get along with everyone. So, it was hard because it's been 15 years since my experience that I have started sharing. But I really felt this spring, like I got the email from IANS to talk about it, to like submit to speak at the conference. And I was like, it's time. And I felt like a really strong urge from my angels and guides, like, you can do this. Like, it's time. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply. This is it. I'm going to do it. But,
And you did a great job.
well, thank you. It was really fun. And I felt like, wow, I had a lot of fear going into that day. But once I shared, it was like really freeing. And now I'm able to talk about it. But, you know, and I did have my stepdad and the shaman that I work with tell me in my 20s that I would be very popular, and that I was going to tell this story, and I needed to be strong. And I was like, I remember thinking that, I was like, well, that's nice that you think that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be strong. I don't want to be popular. And I just like really like actively like tried to shut it down. But I knew that that was not really the right thing to do eventually. So anyway.
Now, during those 2 years, you said you could feel how other people felt when
Mhm.
you were kind or when you were unkind.
Mhm.
Did any of that stay with you after those
Yeah.
2 years?
So that's like a really strong part of my life now. Um, and so I just try to come to everyone with kindness. And it's a lot easier because of the light that I saw. I'm not perfect. So I do, like, if I am unkind or I cause something, I usually immediately apologize. A lot of times people are like, you weren't being mean. Like, you didn't. But in my heart, I knew that how I was feeling. So I have, that definitely sticks with me. And, I just need to try to stay connected to peace and joy and love and all that to keep, the light flowing between everyone. So
Can you imagine if everybody experienced that, how our world would change?
it would be amazing. And I do, like, part of why I think I'm supposed to share is I do think we're all going to be like in some way going through something in everyone's own way. I do think, it's time. It's time. I'm hopeful.
I am too.
Yeah.
Do you still see a light around people?
Yes, especially, when I'm really tuned in, but that first couple days right after I saw that actual light, like it's like, that was the brightest it's ever been. And I can like raise and low. Like if I'm feeling really connected and joyful, like I will see the light. But it's like a lot of like part of the swimming has been like, how do I stay connected to that light? Like God's not going to do all the work for me all the time. Like I need to do my part. So yes, I can see the light around people. I see auras around people. If I'm in a good mood, it's a lot brighter. If I'm feeling like really peaceful and connected. So yeah, it's interesting, it's like I have to do my half of it. It's not like God's gonna do it all for me, like those 2 years where it was like, we're here, we're surrounding you. And then it was like, all right, your turn. So
So, what was it like being at the IANS conference when you can see that light? Because there are so many beautiful people there, so
yeah.
many people that have had near death experiences and spiritually
Yeah.
transformative experiences.
It was so amazing. And what was really intense for me was just feeling like having kept this quiet for so long, to be around so many other folks who had these experiences. But they definitely, like, the experiencers have like a special light that just glows out of them, even if, they're like, I'm not a perfect person. Like they kind of tell these stories, like, but that light is still just like in them and shining out because of what they experienced. Yeah, I mean, after that conference, I had something that hadn't happened in a long time. I hope this doesn't sound too out there, but after I did Reiki for the first time, I would like blow light bulbs out. Like after the IANS conference, like 3 or 4 times in a couple days after the conference was over, like the light bulbs I was around just would just like blow out, like pop out and go dark or go up and down. And I was like, oh yeah, they did talk about that happening. And it had been a while, but
I believe that because there was so much energy you could just feel from the people that were at that conference.
it's powerful. Yeah, there's some really cool people there for sure. So
Why do you think that so many people that have experiences like you have or near death experiences come back with these gifts?
um I guess, I think we're all born with these gifts, and I think we forget them. Part of like being born in the world and in the world we're in right now, like the veil is so strong and we can be so removed. But when you connect with the light, which we're all connected with, but when you actively reconnect or are reconnected, it's like that those gifts are there. I guess I think we all have them and they just kind of become dormant because we have to fit into this world that's so not in tune sometimes, sadly. So I don't know. I mean, I definitely I've been very thankful for my connection with the angels since my experience, but it did take me time to really hone it and understand it.
And how often do you get dreams that are these special dreams?
You're asking me the best questions because I think I think about this stuff, and I get really right after my experience ended and I finished graduate school. I literally like all I had wanted to do was move to the woods and be with God. I now know I can be with God anywhere, but when I lived in the woods for a few years, I had like psychic dreams every night because I was so removed from the world. But it was like, eventually like I have to be in the world. So I get dreams once a month, but it's usually like it's not that exciting. I think that's the point of my experience is like I'm not like I'm just a mom and I have a job. It's like my dreams will be like about my friend. It's not like this big deal thing. It is sometimes they're helpful, like they've told me about a car accident, but sometimes it's just like what's happening with my friends and what I need to do, and it's not like anything really that amazing. So I think that's kind of the point.
And how do you tell the difference between a regular dream and that kind of a dream?
Yeah, and this is something I kind of learned from my stepdad. So he had the same kind of dreams, and he kind of told me a little bit about them, but they're a little brighter. So like my mental dreams that are just kind of blowing off steam, they're just kind of like blah 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 dreams. But my dreams that are psychic or about a friend that's actually happening, um, they're just brighter. They just seem brighter, and I'm like, usually if it's either me talking to a friend and we're connecting, or they're telling me something that's real, and but I don't usually tell them that in real life. Or like it's like I'm just watching. Like if it's a car accident or something that's going to happen, I'm just like watching what's happening, and it's not scary. It's just like okay, I'm just the witness. So
One time you had a beautiful dream and Jesus was on a throne. Can you
yes.
tell us about that?
Oh yeah, I love getting to tell this. I this happened just a couple years ago. So like I was already with my husband and had a daughter and a job, but like something brought this dream to me, and I don't know why. But I was walking up to Jesus, who was sitting in a throne, um, and he was really big in the dream and like giant. And I was walking up, I was like, I need to kiss his feet. This is Jesus, and I was like walking up to him, and then he just pulled my hand up. He got to my same size, and or we were all the same size, and he put me in a throne next to him, and and then his arms reached out to me and to people on the other side, and everybody was holding hands in the dream in their own thrones, going out for all of infinity, and the love of in his heart was going pulsing through everybody. So it was like it was such a beautiful metaphor. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's like we were all in our own thrones. We were all connected to God and Jesus's love, and like I don't know. I just always think about that dream. So yeah.
From this experience you went through and what you continue to do today,
Hmm.
what is the most important thing you've learned?
Love is the most important. Love is all there is. I think is the most important thing. And like we can change our lives by connecting to love, and you can really change your own life and the lives of those around you. And it seems cheesy or it seems like insignificant, but it really makes a huge difference. So like choosing love each morning and then going out in your day like that can really help everything. So
That's great advice. Rebecca, you get messages from angels.
yes.
Can you get one right now for everybody listening?
Okay, let me tune in and see. Let me try. Here's what I'm hearing right now, and it might just be for me, but a lot of the messages are for me and for anyone reading it. They just resonate. But I'm hearing You don't have to be afraid. Everything's going to be okay. When you meet something with resistance, look at it and notice where you feel the resistance. The longer you look at it, the more it will dissipate. This world is made of illusion, and love is the only true force.
Well, we can do more of that in part 2. And in part 2, we're going to talk all about your experience with angels. And so for the audience, I hope you'll tune in for part 2. And also, I'd really appreciate it if you'd give this a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. Also, comments, let us know what you're thinking. And if you touch that little bell, it'll alert you every time a new episode comes out. Thanks so much for joining me on Beyond with Heather Tesch. That was part 1. Make sure to listen to part 2. And if you liked what you heard, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for more episodes.